Good morning, Year 3. So in your last few grammar lessons, you've been working on understanding all the different types of words that there are. So we've been talking about nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, pronouns, prepositions even, and trying to remember what is the name for each different type of word, which is a part of speech or a word class. Today we're going to be moving on slightly and talking about what we call different types of groups of words. In order to understand why this helps our writing, I want you first to imagine that a word is like a piece of Lego. I actually have a piece of Lego here in my pocket. Most sentences can't be just made up of one word. We need to add together lots of different words in order to make up a sentence. Sometimes we'll have two words in a sentence that are nouns or two words in a sentence that are verbs, but most sentences have a mix of all the different types of words. So you could have a noun, you could have an adjective, my Lego. You could have an adjective, you could have a verb, and when you attach them all together, they make a really nice sentence. Sometimes you have groups of words that come together that don't make a whole sentence. They actually make something called a clause or a phrase.
So, Miss Panata, what is the difference between a clause and a phrase?
When you have a group of words, there are two main types of groups of words that you can have. You can have a clause or you can have a phrase. We're going to start by talking about what is a clause. The types of words that you must have in a clause is a verb, and you need something called a subject. The subject is just the name of whoever or whatever is doing the verb. So for example, let's take some collection of words together. I'm going to use the leaves are falling. Now this is a clause because the first thing I've got to check for is it's got a verb. Are falling is a verb. That's something that's happening. It's an action. I also need to check, does it have a subject? Is there something in this collection of words that is doing the verb? Well, here it's the leaves. The leaves are the thing that are falling. Therefore, the leaves is the subject and are falling is the verb, which is why we know this collection of words is called a clause. Because a clause only needs a verb and a subject to be called a clause, some clauses only have two words in them. These are quite rare, but here's one example. I eat. In this collection of words, we have one word that is a verb, which is eat, and we have a subject. We have something doing the verb. In this collection of words, the thing doing the verb is I. I eat. So this is another example of a clause. So you might have noticed that both of these clauses look suspiciously like sentences. And actually, that's something we're going to be learning about later in the week or later next week, that some clauses and a lot of clauses are actually sentences. A sentence is a type of clause. It's called an independent clause. You don't need to worry about this too much for now. I just want you to focus on what is a clause versus what is a phrase. So since we know that a clause has a verb and a subject, we now need to understand what is a phrase. It's very simple. A phrase is a group of words that work together that doesn't have a verb and a subject. So any collection of words that doesn't have a verb and a subject. I'm going to write a few examples. As you can see, these are a collection of words, so more than one word that's put together to kind of make a meaning. In my house, that means something. On the phone, that means something. But is there a verb in the phrase, in my house? No. That's how we know it's a phrase and not a clause, because it needs to have a verb and a subject to be a clause. What about on the phone? Does that have a verb or a subject? It doesn't have either, so it's nowhere near a clause. It's definitely a phrase. For your grammar task today, what you need to do is look at the collections of words on the screen that will appear and decide, is it a clause or is it a phrase? In order to help you, we're going to go through two examples using a quick checklist that will make it really easy for you to determine, is it a clause or a phrase? So here's our clause checklist. So now I have my checklist and my 2 example collections of words. Let's look at the first one and see if it's a clause. Waiting outside the hotel. It's a collection of words. It means something. Does it have a verb? Well, I know that waiting is an action, so it does have a verb. But remember, for it to be a clause, it needs to have a verb and a subject. Is there a subject? Do we know who is doing the waiting or what is doing the waiting? No, we don't. There's no person. Therefore, we know it cannot be a clause, which means it must be a phrase. So I can go ahead and write it in underneath the column where it says phrase. What about the next one? She lives here. Again, I'm going to look at my clause checklist. Is it a clause? We need to look for the verb first. Does it have a verb? Well, I know live or to live or lives is a verb. It's an action. It's something somebody does. So we do definitely have a verb. So that's a big tick. What about a subject? Do we know in this collection of words who is doing the verb? Yes, we do, because we've got a pronoun. We've got she. She lives. That means this collection of words is a clause.
Now you've seen me using the clause checklist to help me decide if a group of words is a clause or a phrase, you're going to do the same. If you don't already have a pen and paper ready, please can you go and get it. Pause the video now and get yourself ready. Now you've got your pen and paper, write the date, 22nd of April 2020, Year 3 Grammar, and the LI, which is to understand the difference between a clause and a phrase. Now, here is the task for today. It says, decide if each of the examples below is a clause or phrase. Write a list of all the clauses and then all the phrases. So you can see there's some groups of words there, and then underneath there's 2 lists ready for you to put your words into, clauses and phrases at the bottom. Make sure you've got your lists with their headings ready on your piece of paper. So you need one column that says clauses and another column that says phrases. Now read through each group of words and decide, is it a clause or is it a phrase? Remember, a clause has to have a verb and a subject. Once you're finished, please do send me your work at this email address, year3@grange.harrow.sch.uk. I would love to see how you're all getting on and look forward to receiving your messages. Bye!